Right about now.
Right about now.
You're about to witness
The Funk Soul Brother.
Jonathan Small.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Right About Now podcast. This is John Small. All right, we're going to do something a little different today, a little crazy towards the end of 2023. I am going to bring you an episode of another podcast that I host and produce for Entrepreneur Media. It's called Dirty Money. Yeah, I'll admit I'm doing a little sneaking behind Right About Now's back and moonlighting on another podcast. But this one I do with my pal, Dan Bova. And every other week, we tell the tales of legendary scammers, con artists, fraudsters, lowlifes, people who will literally stop at nothing to bilk their marks out of millions of dollars. Some of them are even murderers. So on this show, we featured such ne'er-do-wells as Sam Bankman-Fried, the fake heiress Anna Delvey, boy band founder Lou Pearlman, and even Charles Ponzi himself. Yes, the Ponzi scheme was named after a guy named Charles Ponzi. So on the episode you're about to hear, we talked to an amazing person named Jennifer McAdam. And Jennifer is the daughter of a Scottish coal miner who lost her entire life savings of $250,000 to an international cryptocurrency scheme. And she writes all about this in her new book, Devil's Coin, My Battle to Take Down the Notorious OneCoin Cryptoqueen. Jen's a remarkable figure. Rather than take her lumps and sort of wither away in shame and depression, she did something about this scam and she fought back. And now her life story has been optioned and Kate Winslet is scheduled to play her in the movie version. This is really a fascinating David versus Goliath story that will hopefully give us a little hope about the power we as individuals can have against evil multimillion-dollar con artists. So if you enjoy Dirty Money, please subscribe to that podcast as well. I'll leave a link at the bottom of the description. And I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey, everybody, I'm John Small.
And I'm Dan Bova.
And from the Entrepreneur Media Podcast Network, this is Dirty Money.
Investigators have called it one of the biggest corruption cases ever.
You're one of the greatest con men of all time. You're the daddy of them all. But what does it take to be a good con man?
I'm not guilty. You're the one who's guilty.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, John. How are you doing?
I'm good. Just trying to make $1 out of 15 cents.
I hear you, man. As long as you're doing that legally.
Man, hearing about all these frauds all the time, it gives me ideas, keeps me up at night. You know,
Yeah.
Maybe if I was just a little bit less of a ethical person, I might follow the track because we are definitely giving the playbook for how to basically scheme people for money. So in one way, we're doing a service because we're warning people about not falling for different cons. But another way, we're actually showing you exactly how to con somebody.
Well, that's why I'm kind of excited about today's episode because we talk about all this money. We talk about millions of dollars, this and that. And we do mention and we do talk that there's people connected to that money, but we also lose sight of that sometimes. Like this guy stole $200 million.
Right.
And you forget that that's a
They're
collective
victims
of people's, life savings. And you were able to arrange for us to talk to someone who kind of lived through that exact experience to really, anyone who is contemplating doing bad things, I think when they hear her story, maybe that humanity is going to kick back in.
Yeah, you're right. You're so right. We usually focus on the perpetrators of these crimes, the criminals, but we don't talk to the victims a lot. And so today we have the opportunity to talk to Jennifer McAdam, who joins us all the way from Scotland. And I will not even do a Scottish accent because she's really good at Scottish accents. So let her do her Scottish accent. We laugh, but Jennifer lost over $250,000 in a crooked cryptocurrency scheme. And she's written about it in a new book called Devil's Coin, My Battle to Take Down the Notorious OneCoin Cryptoqueen. And this book was a big smash in the UK. And now it was optioned and it was optioned for a movie. Kate Winslet is scheduled to play Jennifer McAdam in the movie version of her life, which is, I guess, somewhat of good news for a
Yeah.
mostly bad news story.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were going to hear all about it. Jennifer was conned by someone named Dr. Ruha Ignatova, who is a Bulgarian-born German citizen and a convicted fraudster who is currently on the run. But she's also, quite strangely, an Oxford-educated lawyer. So once again, we are talking about a criminal who has used her obviously brilliant mind for nefarious reasons.
Yeah. And I think when we talk to Jennifer, I think everybody listening to this, all of us, when crypto started exploding, you feel like, oh my God, this is real, and people are making really big amounts of money off of it. I mean, most of us, or I'll say the me of us, had no clue what was going on. So just stayed away because I don't know what I'm doing, who I'm giving money to,
I
all
know.
that.
I always feel like when I
Um,
find out about a get-rich-quick money scheme, it's usually way too late. So I've usually
Way
missed
too
both.
late, right? Yeah. Once I actually understood what cryptocurrency was, the thing was all over. But you can understand how somebody, as Jennifer will explain, can do some diligence on this, can see someone vetted by reputable places, and people are slippery. They're good at hiding what they're really up to, and it sucks. And as Jennifer is going to explain, it's a financial and a huge emotional toll. So I'm really, really thankful she's going to share her story with us.
Me too. And lest you think this is all just a depressing story, and it is in many ways a very sad story, there's also some light at the end of the tunnel aside from her possible movie adaptation of her. And that is that she took matters into her own hands and she fought back. And so many victims don't fight back. But Jennifer did fight back, and we're going to hear all about that. So, really excited to bring you our conversation with Jennifer McAdam. Jen McAdam, welcome to Dirty Money.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me on. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to speak to you. Dan and I were saying that often on this podcast, we speak about the criminals, and we don't really have an opportunity to speak to the victims of these crimes. And it's really a privilege to be able to talk to you. And thank you so much for being willing to share your story. I know this is a very difficult thing you went through. So thanks for writing your book and coming on the show today.
Yeah, it's comforting to be able to share my story. If it helps others and raise awareness, that's why I'll keep on doing what I've been doing. Yeah.
Well, that's so great, because I think a lot of bad people out there rely probably on people not wanting to talk out loud about it because maybe they're embarrassed or they feel ashamed of what happened to them. And so I think it's incredible that you've written this book about it. You've described it. You're helping other people and speaking to several media outlets. So maybe we did in the intro talk a little bit about what happened to you, but maybe you want to take us back to the day where you sort of learned about this opportunity that didn't turn out to be a real opportunity, and sort of explain how it all unfolded.
Yeah, what it was a year after my father passed away. It was in early 2016. My dad he was 92 when he passed, and he had left money when he died. And previous to this, I took an illness called CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome. And I was bedbound and housebound for a number of years. And when that happens to you, you start to, all your savings, that's when you're not working, you start to take on your savings. And so I was at that stage where the savings were nearly done. I was now being able to get outside the house and do things. So then my dad died, and he'd left this money. Now, my fear at that point was, when you have such an illness as CFS, and you look at life differently, and you look more sooner about your family if something was to happen to you. So I didn't want to use this money that my dad had left. I wanted to put it somewhere safe, and it seems quite ironic now saying that. But that was my thoughts at the time. I was still grieving. And my friend Eileen. She's in the book. And Eileen has MS and has ill health as well. And she was approached online by someone that she knew. And she called me and she said, Jen, I have a chap speaking about a cryptocurrency opportunity, investment opportunity. And what he's saying to me, what I'm picking up, I think it would really be a good place for you to put your dad's money. And so that conversation went, and then it was a few weeks later, she got back in touch and she said this chap had contacted her again. And again, here is the thing that OneCoin was very good at, was the fear of missing out. You know, that now's the time to invest. You missed out in Bitcoin. You missed that early adoptive stage. Here is OneCoin. It's over 1 million investors already worldwide. The market capitalization is immense, and they're going to take over Bitcoin. And so Eileen passed this on to me, and she said, I really think, Jen, you should speak to this chap. I said, well, all right, he's saying that if you invest now, you'll get more coins for your money, more OneCoins. So that's what I did. I said, okay, tell him to phone. He phoned straight away and invited me onto a webinar that evening. At this point, OneCoin was holding webinars globally, 24/7. They call them OneCoin leaders. Very cultish as OneCoin. And so this was the leaders. And in the UK, invited onto this webinar, there was about 100 or so people on it. And they were having these webinars hourly, different leaders, OneCoin leaders holding these webinars. So they were always on it. And on that webinar, it lasted over an hour. And it was, now this wasn't a phone call. You get a scammer on the phone and it's a phone call. This was really an elaborate fraud, Ponzi fraud. It really was. And even the marketing, they must have put a lot of money into their marketing. I certainly never thought I could be scammed. I didn't think I would be fooled. I had a business background before. And so I thought it was wise. On this webinar, they start speaking about digital currency, explaining it, then going to the barter system, the days of old, and how money has evolved. And then they start speaking about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin in 2009 was 10 cents. And now look at it now. Well, in 2016, I think it was about $350 at that point. And they were saying, you've missed that. You've missed the early adopter stage. But now, OneCoin, here is Dr. Ruja Ignatova. And on this webinar, their promotional video, you see her and they tell you how, all her credentials, who she worked for.
Tell us a little bit about who she is and why you were so impressed by her.
Yeah, well, on this webinar, they introduce her and she's standing at the European Economic Summit on stage in front of all these banking dignitaries. And she's given a speech about digital currency and OneCoin.
Today we spoke a lot about the network, the vision for the network, how big we want to be. But as always, I want us to remember what this network is about. This network was created to become and to fuel the growth of OneCoin, which I strongly believe will be the #1 cryptocurrency worldwide. And the reason why I believe it is because I see all of you here. OneCoin is easy to use. OneCoin is for everyone. Make payments everywhere, everyone, globally. And this is who we are, global citizens of a small world wanting to make a change.
And I'm seeing all these very important financial people looking at her. And so that was one box that ticked. Wow, here's this woman standing at the economic summits. It was amazing. Then you're showing Ruja on the front cover of Forbes magazine, Financial IT magazine. And then you're told how she worked for Allianz and McKinsey & Co. and Spearbank. And for me, I was just...
She was a lawyer. She's an Oxford educated. Yeah, has all these credentials.
She has a PhD, yes.
And this is all real.
All
this
real.
is not made up. Yeah.
No, it's not made up. We checked that out. It's all real. But it was really our standing in a speech at the European Economic Summit. Not did 1 second did I think this woman was a fraud. I was more like, she was magnetic. She's a very, very clever woman. I'll give her that. She certainly is that. And I was just blown away with it all. And I thought, this is amazing. Previously, before I took my business, I worked with IT clients. I heard them speak of Bitcoin back in the day, but I never really paid any attention until I was on this webinar with Ruja. She dazzled. She was magnetic. Just so, for me, it was like, wow, power to the woman, so to speak. From being a businesswoman myself, I was just utterly impressed. And so that was the first. I had made up my mind by the end of that webinar that I wanted to invest some of my dad's money into this. Yeah, that ticked it for me.
So at the end of this, you're impressed. So can we ask, how much did you go all in right away? Did you add more? How did your investment go?
What happened was, initially it was €8,000 in total. And the first package, all the OneCoin packages was named. So, for instance, the package that they really sold was called a Tycoon package, which was a €5,000 package. And then they had other ones like your Trader package, Pro Trader, Ultimate package. That went up to 218,000 for that package. And you would find that most people put in a syndicate. But for me, it was that I initially put it in for the Tycoon package. I was then entered into these OneCoin WhatsApp groups. And this is where information is filtered from the OneCoin network, from Ruja, into all these different groups. And so I was in a UK one. And this is where as soon as you join, congratulations to Jen McAdam. She's the first woman in Scotland to buy a Tycoon package. Round of applause and all this razzmatazz.
Yeah. Did they have people come on that talked about how much money they were making?
Yeah, all the time. All the time, right. John.
Do you think they were actual people or were they actors?
No, they were people. They were OneCoin. They were known as leaders. And they would filter this information. And bear in mind, also at this point, there was events worldwide galore. And these events there was a lot of money put into these events. For instance, Wembley. She stood on stage with a red ball gown, sparkling. She came out with diamonds. She came out to This Girl's on Fire song by Katy Perry. There was pyrotechnics.
It is really cultish. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Very much so. I mean, this was Wembley Arena that she filled. And this happened around arenas worldwide. Bangkok, all throughout Asia. There was always events. And all these were people, our co-founder, Sebastian Greenwood, and her. They introduced people from the multi-level marketing business who were really successful at what they did. And it would be these type of people that they would have a downline, which is people like me. And they would filter out information from Ruja. And so it was all very much of OneCoin. The next thing, you used to have a hand sign like that. And you would see people taking pictures. And this would be OneCoin leaders. They would be dripping in their shoes shone that much. They could see the reflection. I mean, they were immaculate. There were Porsches and expensive watches, and the women were just dazzling. And so they gave that insight that this is how your life can change. It was all wording in these WhatsApp groups. It was investment, return, profit. And then it was the package that you've bought. It's not really enough to change your family's life. I was sold that first package, it cost $5,000. And they said to me at that point, as soon as you buy that package, Jen, it turns into 48,000, it's pounds, GBP in value. So your 5,000 Tycoon package, as soon as you buy that, its digital currency value is €48,000. I now know, looking at it now, you think that's ludicrous. But at the time, they fitted it in with Bitcoin, and you saw the rise in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so their Rouge's wording was, our market capitalization is immense. We're growing so fast. We're soon going to overtake Bitcoin. And she stood in Wembley and she said, we are the Bitcoin killer. We are the number one cryptocurrency. And you see the growth in these groups as well. People are coming in all the time. And it's £5,000, I would say, was the average package. But when you went into these groups, you felt the urgency to buy more because you really saw it. You were changing your family's life or your own financial.
Did you ever see a return? Was it like a classic Ponzi scheme where in the beginning you started to see some money and then?
No, never seen anyone. There was promises of an exchange, and that was to get set up and running, and it was always delayed. There was always delays. The value went up. The value went to the moon. It never dipped. It just kept going up. But that was because she was manipulating the value on a keyboard, and there was no blockchain.
And just so people are clear, when you talk about investing your dad's money, you didn't grow up in a wealthy household, right? This is money that he had. What did he do for a living?
My dad was a coal miner, and he worked down. It was a dangerous job working down in those pits. And he never drunk. He never smoked. He was a good man. And he was a good dad. And he lived till he was 92. I remember even at 90, even when I think now, it's it's a lovely memory, but he would be on his bicycle. He would bicycle every day. He would go on a bicycle ride every single day. And at 90-year-old, I would sit back and watch him. You know that way you do the old-fashioned way, they go with their leg 1, 2, 3, and then flip their leg over and they're on the seat.
Yeah.
That would be him at 90 years old, and he would have his bicycle clips on, and then he would come in the home and say, "Hello, lass, are you in?" And it was just it was my hero. And he worked hard. He was I'm from a working class family. So no, we're not rich. My dad and my parents weren't rich. That's what they did. My mum was a homemaker, we say here, and my dad went to work. And he went down to work down the mines.
So you start to feel pressure now. You've invested, you've bought this 500,000 package, and that starts to motivate you. How much did you end up investing?
Well, 8,000, it's €10,000. That's how much I invested. But also my friend who introduced me, this just gives you a small example of the extent people went to. So I bought her a package. It was 500 and something at the time. And I said, I know you don't have it. I want to get this for you. And after, when she was put into these groups and all the messages and she's reading all that, get this package, that'll start to change your lives as it grows in value. So she ended up paying for 2 packages. She took a £2,000 loan, and it's one of these very, very high interest loans online. And she ended up paying 6,800 back of that. And she didn't have any savings. She's really, really ill. She was waiting in a kidney transplant also, as well as having MS. So really what OneCoin did was, yes, there was people that had money that invested, but where they really targeted was the unbanked, the underbanked, the poor, the vulnerable. And they had no care where that money was coming from. They wanted it. They knew they could get it, and they took it. They took it smiling, and so barbarious, so twisted.
Yeah, it's just awful. So at what point did you start getting suspicious? Because you were pretty sucked in. Your friends were pretty sucked in. It was very seductive. And I feel like a lot of these cult-like scams make you feel like you have this insider information that nobody else has. And you've got this, you're onto this incredible thing that nobody else knows about.
Yes.
And a lot of times when you're in a cult, you believe it almost until the day you die.
But you,
Oh.
at some point, were like, okay, there's something fishy here. At what point did you realize?
It was a few things, actually. There was a few red flags. So I invested early 2016. A few months later, I needed a fridge. My fridge broke down. My refrigerator broke down. And I thought, we were told initially before we invested, you can take all your investment back out after 12 weeks. You can take part of your investment back out. It's there for you to take out, but you have to give it 12 weeks for certain things to happen and the value to grow. So we thought, all right. So it was after about 12 weeks and my fridge broke. I said, how do I go about taking some of my investment back out? And this is one of the OneCoin leaders, female. She's like, what? Why? Why, Jen, would you want to take any money out? When you see the growth of Bitcoin, you put your money in to invest. You're not giving it time. So I felt quite like a school child in a way, thinking, shit, sorry. I thought, I've asked the wrong.
You can say we're not a family friendly show.
Oh, right. Okay. Thanks for that. So I said, oh shit, like I shouldn't have asked that. I felt terrible for asking about it. And I would go to my friend Eileen and we started to comfort one another. It's quite psychologically wise when I look back in it now. That's what we did. So if I had a red flag thought and I spoke to Eileen about it, she would comfort me. So for instance, Eileen, they're saying that why would we want to take it out? And they're saying that we can't get it out after 12 weeks. I said, oh, well, that's not what we get told. But listen, that makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense. I mean, look at the growth of Bitcoin. Why do we want to take our money out? So that was the first red flag, that we comforted one another with the uneasy feeling that we were lied to. So we got through that. And then in these WhatsApp groups at the time, you would see OneCoin business bank accounts opening and closing in different details. So I went to this female leader and I said, what's that all about? Why is that happening? Jen, do you know what it is? You see the growth of OneCoin. And at this point, worldwide, it was hitting momentum. Also in the UK, it was phenomenal growth. And she says, you see the way that it's growing. The banks just can't handle it. It's an old-fashioned, I mean, I laugh at it now, it's awful, but at the time, I think you're just hanging on to every word that they say because that's your money.
Yeah.
Put everything that you have into that. You want it to be true. Yeah. And that's where I was. So I came back again to Eileen and I said, do you know what she said? She said that the growth and the banks can't handle it. And that's, well, that makes sense. I mean, look at the growth, Jen. So we comforted ourselves there again. But I was starting to really start to feel uneasy. And I would start asking questions about blockchain. Where is it? And things like that. And I get no answers. Then I get told I was asking too many questions. And I knew at this point, I'm also witnessing in these OneCoin WhatsApp groups, I'm witnessing people asking the same questions. And they kept on asking them. Next thing, they weren't there. Which I didn't know at that time. They were kicked out and their accounts were frozen.
Wow. Anybody who questioned it was just frozen out? Yeah,
frozen out. And you have no connection to what you think then is your investment. You have no connection. You email OneCoin, you didn't get a response. There was no phone number. You were told to speak to your OneCoin leaders. And also at the same time as they're doing this, they're telling people in these groups who do ask the questions before they get removed, saying, don't listen to, say their family had said to them, this is a scam or a fraud, and it would be discussed in the groups. That when any leader would come in and straight away and say, listen, don't listen to these people, don't listen to your family, they don't understand that this is a financial revolution happening here. Ruja, look at the market capitalization of OneCoin, look at the growth. Do not listen to your family. Do not listen to your friends. In fact, don't even listen. Don't even read what Google says. Google lies.
Wow.
So
just everybody else is the enemy. Yeah.
Everybody else is the enemy. And then it started about this one person at the time. He's from the US. He's became a great friend of mine now. I'm forever thankful to him. His name's Timothy Curry. He's from California. And Tim had realised, I think it was a year before it, he's a blockchain and Bitcoin enthusiast. So he was big in Bitcoin and he knew how the technology worked. And of course, he was invited to an event in America and he was like, this is this. He knew right away. So in November, end of November in 2016, this guy comes into my Facebook Messenger and he's like, you're a fucking scammer. I was like, what? And then I saw his name and I went, oh no, I started getting nervous because we were warned about him in these OneCoin WhatsApp groups.
Oh, they said there's this guy, Timothy Curry, who's a bad
This guy, Timothy Curry, he's a Bitcoin lover, a OneCoin hater. He's absolutely a psychopath. If he comes near you or contacts you, block him.
Oh, wow.
So when I saw him, I thought, oh my God, this is this crazy guy they've been telling me about.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we went back and forth. And God loved him. He never gave up. He was relentless. And this went on all weekend, through the night. And when I woke up in the morning, there he was. But this time, he was trying to explain to me. He told me about Ruja being involved in a fraud before. Well, a few frauds before, actually. And he said, these are a criminal organisation. And I'm sorry, he said, you've been defrauded by these criminals. They're criminal. And he kept trying. And I thought, you're great. And there'll be suicides about this. And I thought, oh, you are crazy. So I blocked him. But in that weekend, he had left me so much information. And before I blocked him on the Sunday evening, I was so worked up. I was so defensive. I was a OneCoin enthusiast. I didn't want to believe what he was saying. That was just too painful. And I just didn't want to believe it. And so the blocks were there, the mental blocks were there. But I remember saying to him, oh, fuck this, because he was going on all weekend. Here's a link. Join me on Zoom. I want to ask you questions. And he came on Zoom and we went at it back and forth. The two of us were irate with one another. I was defensive of my investment in OneCoin. And he was like irate, trying to get it through to me. This is a scam. And so that's how we left that. In that time, he had, that weekend of speaking, he'd left me a dossier of information. Took me months to go through it, but I went through it. Because after that, I thought, nobody goes on like that. Is he crazy? So I recorded it on the intention of sending it to OneCoin leaders and saying, look, this is what this guy's saying. This is how he's coming across. But I sent it to them and they just said, oh, he's crazy. He is crazy. He's a psychopath. Block him. So I did. But after I went through the information, come January 2017, I reached back out to Tim. And I said, Tim, you said in our conversation in November last year that you spoke with all different authorities. You spoke with the USA, you spoke with the UK, and you had a contact for the UK. Can I have it? And he gave me it. I phoned the following day to London City Police. And it was a DC Kieran Vaughan there at the time. And he said, Jen, also we were told, we'd heard rumours that OneCoin was being investigated in the UK. I asked questions about that. It was denied, completely denied, no such thing. So when I spoke to DC Kieran Vaughan and he said, Jen, yes, we are investigating OneCoin in the UK. I would advise you not to invest any further and to advise others not to invest any further. And that's how that conversation went. Yeah, it was a terrible time, but also a few days before that, I had kept on asking questions to the OneCoin leaders. I wouldn't let it up after the call with Tim. I couldn't. I had too many questions. Of course, again, they threatened to be my accounts frozen. And one leader eventually left me a voice note. I've still got the audio recording. And he said, Jen, I said, I was going on about the blockchain. I wanted to know more about it. And I'll never forget his message, ever. And he said, the voice note came back and it was, Jen, OneCoin is a SQL server with OneCoin's blockchain technology at the back end of it. Well, if you know a blockchain, a SQL server is not blockchain technology. A SQL server you can manipulate. You can do whatever you want. It's usually used for an accountant's database. It's that type of thing. So I knew right away, oh shit. Oh, and it was that point. Do you know what, in a way that the way I kind of look at this moment in time, because it took the legs from me. I felt as though I couldn't breathe. Because all I could think at this point was, oh my God, the people that have invested from it, friends or family, what you've been up to, Jen? Wait a minute, I've invested. I've made a digital currency. You speak about it. You're that excited. That's what I did. And other people invested as well. And then they spoke to other people. And this went like wildfire. And I remember looking into the OneCoin before they froze my accounts. I logged into the dashboard and I looked at the collective total at that point, and that was $250,000. That's from my network and then the people they spoke to. So my 1,000 was, if you can imagine that moment when I heard that voice note, a SQL server, I didn't. Thinking about my investment went out the window. I was thinking about, oh my God, $250,000. These poor people, and I fell to my knees. My knees went like jelly. They just went. That was an awful moment, a terrible moment.
Like we were saying in the beginning, many people in this situation just would have called the police, but just swallowed like I was a fool and kind of beat themselves up about it and stuff. And you probably went through all these things, but you also decided to fight back. Can you talk a little bit about?
I was just so shocked at it all, and they can't get away with this. And I guess it goes back to my life in Scotland and how I was raised. And when I look back at aunties and uncles and mum and dad and cousins, and we were all raised to stand up. Don't be afraid to stand up for what's right and for what's just. If you feel you've got something to say, then say it. It would be like, say it, lassie. That's how I was brought up. And I couldn't believe how the events, they were still ongoing. And I'm watching these events worldwide, and I thought, this is wrong. I can't. You owe me, and you owe so many people that I know a lot of money. And then at this point, I thought, no, I can't sit back and watch this. What I did was I made up a message to put into these OneCoin groups, and I said, webinar held tomorrow night, time. OneCoin is under investigation in the UK. OneCoin as a fraud. For further information, please join me. And that's what I did. And as soon as I put that into all the WhatsApp groups, I knew they couldn't remove that from WhatsApp. Once it was there, but they removed me.
Of course, right away.
So that's what happened. And I held this webinar, was told Druja joined it and all the OneCoin leaders as well, anonymously. And I had Tim come on it, Timothy Curry. Yeah, he was amazing. And Bjorn Bjerke, he also blew the whistle. He's a blockchain specialist and from Norway. And OneCoin, I didn't know this, prior to this, had approached them for a job to build a blockchain, offered them all sorts, incredible amounts of money, car, house. And his question to them was, build a blockchain. But you're a cryptocurrency, so you should have a blockchain. And he never heard anything since. So him and Tim managed to connect online. And they come on to the webinar. I didn't know who Bjorn was, and I saw this chap with his head nodding. So I opened up the mic thinking he was a victim. And I'll never forget the words when he said, I'm sorry you've all been fooled. OneCoin is connected to an Eastern European criminal network. So at that point, just not long finding out that it was a fraud and all this money had been lost, I'm now trying to keep a straight face so not to worry all the other investors who joined that webinar. That I'm thinking, a what? An Eastern European criminal net? What? And so that's that stage. And then it was 2 weeks later. I'm still trying to take all this in. The pain is hellish. This was hell. It still is hell. And the suffering of people, their wails, their cries, their depression, their suicide. I've spoke to thousands of victims. even suicidal because everything has gone. And at that point, I thought, what do I do? And people I didn't know, OneCoin investors after that webinar were saying, Jen, can we join your WhatsApp group? I'd opened up a victim support WhatsApp group. I didn't know what else to do. I just knew I had to do something. And so investors worldwide started joining. It was then, 2 weeks later, I received a defamation threatening letter from Ruja Ignatova and OneCoin Limited, from a huge libel law firm in the UK that even journalists are terrified from. And basically I was to shut up and else,
You didn't.
But no, I didn't, because what did I have to lose, right? She had took everything I had. I didn't live in a huge house that I had to worry about that. I didn't have, she had took it all. And when I received that letter, that was like, I went and poured myself a double Jack Daniels and Coke that day.
Yeah.
Just, down the hatch it went. And I went on to the groups that I'd set up for support. I was told Ruja was in the groups. And I just said to her, do you know what? Here's my answer. I'm not going to a lawyer, and you can kiss my arse. Take me to court. We'll go all the way. I was desperate to get her to court. And I still am. And I hope the US do it, because they're leading the way.
Well, I was just going to ask, so is this still operating? Is she still doing this? Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? They're still doing it. As long as Bulgaria keeps those doors open, this won't stop. And
wow.
And still we're still, even last year, at the end of last winter, we had to notify authorities again in a hotel. They were going to hold a huge UK event again in the UK, right in plain sight, under authorities, in a big hotel, and another big event. Yeah.
But is she on the run? Like, she is wanted, right?
Yeah, well, thank God for the USA, honestly. The USA, she's in the FBI's top 10 most wanted.
Wow.
And now
so she's on the run, and nobody, do we assume she's in Bulgaria hiding somewhere?
Yeah. Well, that's where my thoughts lead to in a few other places, just due to whistleblowers that worked with her and what they have said. But yeah, now it's coming out of Bulgaria. She's been chopped up and thrown into the sea. But that's what they want you to believe. They want that story to come out. I don't believe it. The USA, the FBI put up the reward. It was initially 100,000, but they've just recently put it up to $250,000 for her. So they wouldn't do that if they thought that she was dead. No, she's definitely very much around. I don't feel of any doubt about that. Yeah.
So since you've written your book and you've been talking to different media outlets, including us, I know you got threats while you were sort of in the midst of trying to tell other OneCoin investors that this was a scam. Have you received threats in any way? Have you heard from them in any way?
Yeah, I just had to make another police report last week for sexual calls and threats. And the most disgusting the previous reports I had to make was for the death threats. So death threats, sexual violence threats, sexual calls. They get a hold of your number. Even if you change your number, they find a way. And so that's where I am last week and the week after that. The calls are just keep coming in. But to be honest, I expected it. When I took part on a podcast called the BBC Missing Cryptoqueen, I worked with them for 8 months. And to get the story out, that was the first media platform it really took an interest. And when the first episode was to be broadcast, that following day, there was a OneCoin leader, I think it was Vietnam, machine gun range. And they recorded him shooting this machine gun. It's on YouTube. And basically threatening those who exposed, which was myself and Bjorn and Tim. So that's a threat to like shut up. But it would be like things like "fuck you" and "you're dead, daddy," and things like how they were going to rape me and how they were going to kill me, what they were going to do. They would take me out, and I wouldn't be living for long. These are threats that at the time, I guess you just put a lid in it to carry on but it did affect me. It has affected me. It has left its scars.
Yeah.
I constantly look everywhere now, even if I'm sitting in a restaurant, my eyes are everywhere. I think it'll always affect me. There's nothing I can do about that.
But you have this network now of thousands of people who have banded together, right? And sort of almost like a giant support group.
Yeah.
Are you working with these people to find justice? Like what is the organization you started? Like,
well, the focus was always for the first moment I opened up the first support group, was to raise awareness so that to protect others so they don't have to enter into this hell, because it's a hell and it's a financial hell, and also for justice. And at that time, I've been doing this nearly 7 years now, advocating for justice and raising awareness. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to do. I just knew that I keep on speaking about it wherever I could. And finally, now with the US making the arrests, because they've also made arrests of the co-founder, Sebastian Greenwood, Rouge's brother, Konstantin Ignatov. They're all in the US. They've all been extradited, and the US have them, and the various waiting sentences and court trials. But anyway, it's always been about justice, and there was never been any help or support. And this was a global situation. There was many victims, even from Africa, USA as well, UK, Australia, Canada. There wasn't a country she didn't touch. There was no support. There was nothing at that point, way back then. Now,
you felt alone.
Oh, it was totally alone. You know that way you scream and you're screaming and you feel as though you're just getting doors slammed shut on you. Nobody was interested. The media wasn't interested. The authorities weren't interested. And that was really painstaking. That was exhausting just to keep that going. And but when you hear a victim's story, when you hear their pain and you hear their suffering and you hear what that's done to their families, like ripped families apart. I remember I got a call from a chap in India. There was a group of 13 of them investors. He said, maybe we've made a collective decision to end our lives. And maybe then the world will hear us. And I couldn't get him to answer the phone. Ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. And that man never leaves my thoughts. So when in times this became so difficult, I had all this from my family. I couldn't tell them what was going on. So when you hear these people's pain and suffering, in my weak moments, I thought, I can't take this anymore. It would be one victim and one victim story to say, no, I can't keep going. I'm not stopping. So it's the victims that gave me, they've been my strength. And now we have over 10,000 victims globally in the support groups, with more being asked to join every single day, because many are still brainwashed. Many still don't want to believe it. It's too painful for them.
Yeah.
That is the devil's coin.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. Yes, John, I was just about to say the same thing. I mean, thank you for sharing this. It's obviously it happened a while ago, but it's still obviously very close to the surface and still extremely painful for you. So we really appreciate you sharing your story and educating others about this, because as we said at the top, it'd be one thing to just sort of like, I just want to put this behind me and move on with my life and forget this ever happened. But you've had the strength to keep pushing to help others in your same situation. So that's pretty amazing.
Oh,
where do you so you obviously lost everything, but are you on the, you're never going to recover, I think, what you lost, but are you on the mend? Are you working now? Like tell us a little bit about where you are right now in your life.
Well, where I am now is I'm fighting for justice still. I still raise awareness where I can. I've just finished the book that was 3.5 years in writing, and now it's I'm really pleased to say here today that after all these years, finally we have an outstanding law company who are going to represent the victims as we go forward for justice. Yeah, it took 7 years. So it's an amazing feeling to be here and to be able to say that. Yeah. So that'll be happening soon. That's going to keep me really busy.
Yeah. Wow.
10,000.
And there's also, not to be too frivolous, but there's also a movie, right? Maybe that was optioned, or your book was optioned. And tell us a little bit about that. Is that still, where are we at with that movie? I know there's a strike. And
this is the strike. So everything's kind of paused at the moment, but it's still very much before the strike happened. They were in casting stages. So that's where that's at. Yeah.
And Kate Winslet is signed on to play you in this movie?
She was initially, but I'm not sure it's going to be Kate anymore. I think she's just too many projects. And with COVID, a lot, there's a lot there. So I don't think that will be the case. If it is, wonderful. But I met Kate. She's a darling. She's she came to my home for a visit and to meet my family. How beautiful is that? To take that time out. And she's a beautiful soul inside and out. But yeah, that's where we are now. Is actually the MG, it was Scott Z. Burns who approached and he said, Jen, I would really like to take your story and the victim story to Phil. And I couldn't believe it because he showed interest before I even had a book deal. I was writing the book. We were writing. I just hadn't the proposal had just been out, I think. And then we had that conversation. So it's very surreal still.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for sharing your story. And it's welcome, really pleasure and inspiring. And there's very few good things that come out of this, but your strength is certainly admirable in these circumstances. So thank you. And if you're listening to this, stay away from OneCoin. Do not invest in Devil's Coin.
Yes, and if you don't understand blockchain technology or cryptocurrency, stay away from it, because what may look like sugar could be salt, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
And can you tell us, or tell listeners, anyone who maybe is listening who may have experienced this, where can they get in touch to become part of the support group?
Oh, thanks, Dan, for mentioning that. At the moment, they can join the Facebook group, the OneCoin Victim Support Information Group. We will have a website once the law, once that kicks off, there will be a website for that. But at the moment, it's just, I would say, join the Facebook Victim Support Group. There are Telegram and WhatsApp, but mainly join the Facebook group, because that's where all the updates for the next legal action, all the updates will be posted in that group. If they could do that in the meantime, that'd be great.
Great.
Well, thanks again, Jen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, John. And thank you, Dan.
Dirty Money is a production of the Entrepreneur Media Podcast Network. It is produced by Dan Bova and John Small, with music by Rich Bova. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Thank you for listening.